So let me explain why I'm not King James only, by which I mean saying that the King James is the only legitimate translation of the Bible into English. I love the King James translation. As a new believer in the early 70s, I probably read it through cover to cover about 5 times in the first 2 years. And then when I used to memorize 20 verses a day, which I did every day without fail for over 6 months at one period of time in the early 70s. So I ended up memorizing like 4,000 verses out of the King James. I appreciate its beauty, its majesty, the impact it's had on the English language and literature through the centuries. But I'm absolutely not King James only, because that's a ridiculous and completely wrong doctrine. The King James translation is a translation where the translators did their best to produce a Bible in the language of the people. If you read their preface and they tell you their intent, I believe the last thing they would want is hundreds of years later, people thinking that this was A, specially inspired, and B, that it shouldn't be updated. I believe if they were alive today, they would be one of the ones producing a new and improved translation. Now, why is it that I still don't say that the King James is my favorite Bible or number one? Several reasons. One reason is that the English language has changed dramatically, and certain words have changed in meaning, and you wouldn't even realize it unless you knew. So you're reading it, you think it means one thing, and it doesn't, because the English has changed. A second thing is we have better understanding of the Hebrew and Greek by God's grace. More evidence, more documents that we can look at. And then the third thing is we have more accurate texts. We found more and more ancient texts that God's preserved of the Bible for us that we should take advantage of. And then the idea that King James is perfect. Let me just give you one tiny little example. Luke chapter 10, verse 19. Luke 10:19 in the King James, "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you." So notice you have power over the power of the enemy. But that's not what the Greek says. The Greek word for power is dunamis, which means power, the second time. But the first time, the Greek word there is exousia, which is authority. It's a different word. Just like the end of Matthew's gospel, all authority in heaven and earth is given to me. Yes, we have power over the power of the devil, but that's not what Jesus is saying there. We have authority over his power. The Greek uses 2 different words. The King James translators used one and the same word. That is misleading. It's not accurate. Just like thou shalt not kill should be thou shalt not murder. So the King James is far from perfect. It's a human product. It's glorious. It's been blessed, but it's a human product. Let's use the best translations we have today for the glory of God. And let's discard this notion that the King James is the only authorized Bible to use.